So what exactly was the issue with vetting of IDs for folks in this area previously, before we come to now how things would change with the president's pronouncements?
Well, I'll say the vetting process was one of the most undignified remnants of the policies the Kenyan government has used over the years to deal with the people of northeastern Kenya, particularly. Yes, vetting happens in
everywhere
the border areas in the five countries that we have borders with. But the vetting that happens in northeastern was a bit more nuanced, more rigorous, to the extent that people who were whose parents were born and bred in Kenya have been denied ID cards. I have cousins, nephews and nieces that I took to university through my contacts because they would not be allowed there because of ID cards, and who finished university and could not get jobs because they've been lacking the ID cards for many years. And that is the situation that is happening across. Rigorous vetting processes at where the application is taking place, and even when your form is accepted, it has to go through the National Intelligence Service and the DCI, and sometimes it takes years for someone to get an ID card, and sometimes you may never get it, all because you are Somali or you look Somali.
Why is what I'm still trying to understand. That if somebody says that my parents are Kenyan and they're born here, and you have the relevant documentation, or are we looking at cases whereby they wouldn't have the relevant documentation in order to prove? No. People will present the birth certificates of their parents. They will present the ID cards of their parents. They will present their school certificates, a letter from the chief, and maybe an oath from even the ancestors, with the elders sitting there, positively identifying you as somebody they know, but still, something gets stuck somewhere, and you go without an ID card. I mean, every other week I'm taking people to the headquarters of the National Registration Bureau with young people looking for their ID cards. I mean, for us, it is a really huge matter. And that is why once the president scrapped that, there were celebrations. In fact, I was likening it at some point to people in this thing getting another Independence Day, with that single action the president took.
What is the normal vetting process that is documented and that is legal in this country? What is it that is required when somebody wants to get an ID?
Look, when you are applying for an ID card, you have to come with a letter from the chief.
Yes.
That happens across the country.
Yes.
You are also supposed to be positively identified by the chiefs and the elders who are there, as well as the government officials who are seated as the vetting committee. And you're supposed to fill the form, and then you're supposed to go through a process where, there are different layers of vetting that goes on. But once the forms live there, you have absolutely no guarantee whether you're going to get your ID card or not. Because it goes through the National Security Intelligence, and it takes, for those who are lucky, it takes months. For those who are not, it takes years.
Do you know what is strange?
And sometimes never.
Even the acquisition of a passport used to have such problems. Because you would go through all that entire process. The moment the thing was taken to, what did we call NIS then? Special branch. Again, you did not know what would happen. It was never a simple process. Now, I'm interested in understanding. The normal process we understand, a birth certificate may be required, attendance in school may be required, but what are the extra vetting requirements that Kenyans of Somali ethnicity were subjected to?
Look, our major problem is not with going through that process.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Our major I'm coming to your question. What we have a problem with is we're being like administered with policies and processes that do not adhere to other Kenyans.
Again, I am seeking to understand. Let me repeat myself.
Yes.
There are processes that Kenyans of Somali ethnicity were subjected to that other Kenyans were not subjected to.
That's our major problem.
In fact, there were times when Kenyans of Somali ethnicity, they were required to have an additional identity as beyond what we refer to as the national identity card.
It's called the Somali verification, Kenyan Somali verification card.
Yes. So essentially, you were a second-class citizen in your own country because it was like somebody who has an alien what? Identification.
Yes,
and
like
yet
me.
you are a citizen.
Yes.
This is what I wanted you to bring out. Because when people talk about the differences, many people don't understand because they think you're just going through the process. So that's one. Secondly, even when you provide all the documentation, you still do not get the ID.
Exactly. There's no guarantee.
Yes. Well, other people get.
Yes.
So now the question is, why was that the case?
Look, the issue is because we are Somali people, and on the other side of our border is a country called Somalia, where the people who live there look exactly like us and speak the same language.
Sure.
But is that reason enough? Is that reason enough to marginalize the people of northeastern Kenya who are bona fide Kenyans, who contribute land to this country called Kenya, who are taxpayers and have also fought in the independence war for this country and have been part of the nation building process from the time we got independence until now? Is that enough? I mean, should the government segregate us? And that's what President Ruto has done away with. And that's why people in Northeastern feel that he is a different breed from the leadership we've had in Kenya since independence. And you know what? At the beginning of our conversation, I said remnants of policies the government has used to govern this region. There were instances in the past where the only interaction we had with the government was, soldiers coming to burn our villages and kill our people. There have been massacres, the Malkamari massacre in Mandera. We had the Wagala massacre in Wajir. We had the Garissa massacre. And so many atrocities. Communal punishment, collective punishment was one of the policies the government used. But over the years, with democracy and multi-party politics and the new constitution of 2010, things improved somewhat. But there were lingering policies such as that one. And another one, which is the failure of the governments to do away with the Indemnity Act, which indemnifies those who carried out
the
atrocities in Northeast. Choices have consequences. Since independence, the people of that region have been dealt with very roughly, from massacres to name any atrocities and crimes against humanity. Now, the key to what we are seeking, which is safety and stability, is inclusivity. Bring in those people from the cold. Stop administering a different set of rules and laws that do not have any effect on the other part of Kenya. Stop treating them like second-class citizens. And only then, once inclusivity takes hold, I mean, we've been playing our role despite the exclusion.
I understand this, but my question is
and we are ready to play our role.
My question is very different. I am saying, because you said it here, in the event that somebody needs to go through the process and there's a documentation that you do not have. You don't have it. It's not a matter of, you don't have it. This is what they need. You don't have it.
Yes.
How are communities going to join government, because it's government essentially that's giving you this document? How will communities then be able to play the part and join this policy whereby we say, in the event that you don't have the document, will we have conforming, cooperative members of the community who are going to be able to come in and say, yes, this is actually somebody?
I would assure you that we are ready to play our role. And again, I'll repeat again, we've already been playing our role.
Okay.
Even despite this, in spite of how we've been treated, in spite of all these rules that do not apply to other Kenyans having, being used in the region, we have already been playing and we are ready to go a step further. Go the extra mile to ensure that we protect our country as we've always been protecting and even beyond.
The beauty of this conversation, it broadens the discussion around the process of marginalization which we institutionalize in this country against many communities.
Yes.
And the Kenyans of Somali ethnicity issue points to something that should have been rectified a long time ago and hasn't.
City in Kibra, there's a community called the Nubians.
Yes.
That spent years not being identified as Kenyans.
More than 50 years.
And yet they live in the heart of the city.
Yes.
Okay? And they have been dispossessed of land because of that.
Land which was genuinely apportioned to them by the authority of that particular time. It was given to them.
And then on top of that, not just losing land. When they lost the land, they lost the economic empowerment. So they've had generations of poverty because the government refused to do right by them. And I keep telling people, separate the evil people from a community. And every place I've gone,
the Nubians have the same problem of identification like the Kenyans of Somali ethnicity.
Yes,
believe me,
exactly.
Same process.
And the thing is, we keep identifying people with a community. And I remember every place I've ever gone city where communities have been called cattle rustlers. I talked to a woman and she said, Mimi si mwizi wa ng'ombe. Why don't I have a road? So there's clear focus in my mind. Separate bad people from a tribe and a religion. Those things are very different.
Yes, it's difficult though.
It is difficult. And even as we wrap up this conversation, Reshima, what would you hope to see? In a short bit, what would you hope to see in the next, because it's probably going to be very quick. What do you hope to see?
Well, I hope to see a more inclusive Kenya, because in inclusivity lies our salvation. And we are a nation that is more or less a jumble of ethnic groups, drawing in different directions, whose only knowledge of the next ethnic group is just the stereotypes that we like, brandishing around on the streets. We need to be a more cohesive nation that feels for each other. A landslide in Muranga should cause a lot of pain in Mandera.
Absolutely.
A ferry sinking in Lake Victoria should be a concern for the whole nation. We need to draw together and unite for the sake of this country, because we don't have a spare country.
Indeed.